Good evening, Thomas. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. Hey, I
Awesome.
guess we're the first to last the Nerdom.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. We're getting ready to pull out our grab bag, see what's
Yeah.
inside.
Back
Oh,
again.
I found the first thing I found was my Tron Legacy disc.
That is cool. In
Yeah.
case you're wondering what Tom's talking about, that Tron disc is basically a throwback to our main show this week, where we covered Tron and Tron Legacy. And we had a very fun time with that this week. So subscribe to catch that. One of many, many things in our back catalog that we invite you to go back and look through and watch. And please, even better, if you have feedback, we'd love to hear it. But this week, we have quite a week with our grab bag. What do you say, Thomas?
Yeah, I think we they had the Disney weekend D23 or something. I forget what it was called.
I saw that. I saw that. That came. I usually I have an ear to the ground for that, but I was really surprised that was apparently there were some very interesting things that came from that.
Yep, I think we have a few articles that we'll be going over about it. Some of the reveals on it and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Yep, and we're I guess it's going to be a Disney centric week, as like you said, we did talk about Tron. This is my limited edition Blu-ray collection of the first and second movie. I got it back in 2011 when it came out, so I don't know if it's hard to find or not. So if it is, I can anyone that wants it, read and weep, and there see it and weep.
Yeah, you can. You might be able to find it as a collector on other things. I know. Well, I'm not going to say what I. There's a certain kind of Dune thing, and I normally do not go after collectibles and that kind of thing, except for one. I'm saving it for a special day to bring it on the show when we are actually in real life. And that was a very rare Expanse when it ended up. They gave a lot of the cast and the crew a very specific kind of gift engraved with their name on it. And one of those was a whiskey decanter, or whatever the hell it's called, with the two really nice highball glasses or whatever. Anyway, but I digress. There's a couple things that I might want to. Now that I have a mantle, I can put nice things up and kind of just proudly display my nerd heritage and whatnot. I could do it anyway. Far field, but that I'm very jealous of that. So all this to say that Tron disc is really friggin' cool. And I believe you said all you got to do is find the batteries or whatever.
Yeah,
it lights up and all that cool stuff.
It's thin and it's got all the disc in it, so it has a spot for watch batteries. So you actually have to get watch. It tells you which ones. So I just have to buy them specifically, and the blue will light up. There's like a little button to light it up. I don't remember if it makes any sounds, but I don't think it does. I think it's just light up. But yeah, that's cool. So yeah, that's our first thing in the grab bag. This is our grab bag where we talk about various news things. We talk about recommendations as far as YouTube channels and comic books, a little bit of everything. So if we talk about something you're not really interested, wait a little bit, maybe skip ahead on your YouTube browser onto something you are interested in. But maybe we try to make it interesting so that maybe if it's not particularly appealing, maybe we'll make it appealing to you. So
yeah. Absolutely. And if you don't like it, you can eat poo, and you can launch a whole YouTube career and criticizing every little move that we make, like a lot of folks like to do nowadays. That's a joke.
Again, I'm the good cop, Mike's the bad cop, so that's our dynamic. We play around with that. Indeed. I've found something a little scary for us.
I saw this in passing. I didn't really read any art. I just saw the headlines and I kind of went on about my day. But so this creepy kind of
right for
female fungus.
Yeah, for longtime viewers, you may remember Chris. He cursed us when we talked about him. We had a lot of technical difficulty, so hopefully this won't. we're talking about Loeb. She she's the scary AI monster that that keeps showing up. So basically, there's an AI generator that it takes the image or phrase that you put in and goes to it reproduces it negatively. So it takes
Okay.
all the positive aspects of that of what you put into it and make it negative. They put in Marlon Brando and they got Loeb, which is that on this article, it's that middle picture, and that last picture is what was a couple of the images that were generated.
Okay.
Now if they put Loeb, the image of Loeb, one of the images of Loeb, with anything else, she always reappears in the image. She's always there,
Oh,
no matter what it is. That first one is one of the you can't really see it, but that's one of the creep. But so everything she comes as is a creepy image. But yeah, yeah, if you do a Google search for Loeb, you get some interesting pictures. But yeah, if you uh but yeah, that article has a few of the different images as well. But yeah, there's yeah, that yeah, that's I think that second one is if they put a Joker in, uh and then they put B Loeb in and got that one B picture. If you scroll up, there's the in that second row, if you go to the top, there's one. Yeah, I think if you scroll out a little bit, I think we don't see it, but let's see. Let's see. Oh yeah, they're there on the third row, fourth picture. That's one of the creepier ones.
okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Uh,
Oh, wow.
yeah, they've already started memes with
That's
her, I
funny.
guess.
That's funny. Cool, cool.
But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
let
If
me
you
bring
go
it
back to
back
the
to
article and
the actual article.
yeah, and if you scroll down, there's some images of her there. But yeah, basically, she's the new AI monster. That's one of the creepier images. A lot of
Uh,
times they did Avatar and Loeb, and that's what they got. And B Loeb got that.
wow. That's
Uh,
crazy.
but yeah, there's yeah, so she's out there. So and hopefully she won't curse us as well.
Oh, go to hell, Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to log in. Oh, all right. Well, that whatever. I thought that was going to be like a thing. We're not going to watch a whole
Yeah.
Twitter movie on it. Whatever. No, and well, you just never know where this is going to go. And I just
Yeah.
know
I think
there's somebody out there who is like paying attention to all this, and they're younger, and they have the formulative ideas for making this into something beyond
yeah.
just kind of like a pop culture kind of
Yep.
interest or
Mhm.
passing fade thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's the Swedish musician Super Composite that discovered it. And yeah, his Twitter feed has a bunch of the images on it as well. I think he has a thread of it. But yeah, so
Very cool.
I'm not super fancy with Twitter, and I don't know how to pull up all those wonderful threads, but yeah, I'm sure if you're interested out there, you could track down Loeb and have plenty of images to haunt your nightmares with.
Yeah, no thanks. I'm good. It's a cool little see this is what I'm talking about. This is why nobody likes you, Twitter. I'm gonna kill that because I don't want to give them any more play than I need to. Anyway, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like kind of like a modern day thing they're going. This new. I've also read that on top of this, kind of to tie into it, is that artists are actually using this as a new medium in order to enhance and do things that they weren't able to do before programmatically, but and not just programmatically, but like where they actually do writing. It's another tool in their toolbox to kind of come up with these things in this. And I know you and I have kind of passed back and forth different kind of AI generated images, just interesting. Or some that just capture your imagination. You can just stare at them forever. And then kind of just let your imagination wander. But anyway, with that being said, I think that kind of pounded a nail in the
I think one of the fascinations of it is the fact that a computer AI is generating it, but I think an AI is only a reflection of ourselves. You know, if we ourselves are creating the AI, it's going to have the imperfections that we do as well. So, so yeah, it's just generating what we want to see, or
yeah. All an AI is, it's no different than a program. A program cannot exceed its limitations. Now AI is a little bit of an exception because it can learn and grow, but not it still can never grow beyond its original base programming, no matter what. And regardless, it's still a human hand that has to code it and set it in motion. So it's still very much a reflection of us. That's a very apropos, very good.
Yep. So yeah, that's my little button on that.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So moving into our Disney heavy coverage this week, because again we had D3, and then we have some things on the back end here that we'll get into. But so what's going on with the Avengers in this?
This is the article, and then I also gave you a link to the actual comic book. It's All Out Avengers. This article just basically kind of promotes the comic book by pointing out the all-powerful bow or whatever that's in the comic book. But basically, the idea for the comic book is that the I think either the editor or the writer, the editor was like he was a fan of comic books back in the days, back in the 80s and 90s, whenever I guess more or less back in the 80s, when you would go to your local drugstore or grocery store and just grab a comic book off the spinner rack. And usually it was a single issue. You had no idea what the story was, what happened in the previous issues, or what would happen in the future. You just read an action-packed comic book without any of the build-up from the previous issues, and you're just launched into the action of that issue, and you just love that comic because of all the action. So this comic book is supposed to reignite that same excitement where it is with this first issue, where it immediately jumps into, say, the second or third act to the story. So you don't have all the preamble of all the setup and all what was going on. You jump straight into the action, and that's why it's called All Out Avengers. So it's just and then it's similar to what they did with the comic book with Spider-Man. I think Nonstop Action Spider-Man is what it was called. I didn't read that one, but this one's, and also there's a mysterious narrator of this comic book that's kind of describing what's happening. It sounds like it's a somewhat omniscient person, and at one point, I think it's the Blade character. He starts questioning as to, so how did we get here? What was going on that caused us to do this? And the narrator said, "Oh, we don't need that. Let's fix that." And then in the second panel, the Spider-Woman was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Oh, I don't know. I forgot." And so they go on. So there's something mysterious happening. An overarching story of what's going on. But the thing I'm going to recommend this for is that, obviously, since it's going to be single issues with the same story, that has sort of like a overarching storyline, you could pick up an issue and get a complete story without having to read the whole thing. And this is, I say this is ideal for kids and teenagers. There's nothing in it that's overtly dark, especially in this first story. And I think that's maybe what they're gearing towards is It's just a fun read with the characters you know and love. You got Spider-Woman, you got Thor, you got Captain America, Black Panther, Blade, and Spider-Man in this issue. Just telling a story kind of out of continuity. You don't have to know all the back history of what's been currently going on with Thor or Captain America or Captain Marvel's in this as well. She's possessed in this one,
Oh,
but and she fights Thor. This would be great to hand to a kid to read. If they like all those characters, they're gonna enjoy the story. And yeah, there's not no complicated um, you know story or in dark that you wouldn't want a kid to read. But yeah, I think if they're not towards the younger side because it may be a little confusing, but I say uh 12 to whatever, they would have fun with this.
dang it. Yeah, actually, this kind of reminded me. This jogged my memory. Just kind of piggyback off of this. There was a very short-lived animated series called The Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And to be a little bit ADD about this a little bit, but in any case, kind of not ping pong too much, but it was very good, a very good quality, and I remember watching it. I think my kiddos liked it a little bit, but I think I liked it more. But anyway, shout out to what Thomas just said. Go and pick this one up. It might be of interest to that. That's
Yeah.
cool. Like,
Yeah, and Greg Land does the artwork. He's really good. He's been accused and been proven to have traced some of his lady characters from I guess models, pictures of models. But despite that, his art's actually really good. If you look at that, he's not tracing a model for that creature shooting that bow.
right, or
So
picking a fight with the Nerdom on Twitter.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm not familiar with the writer, but this first issue was a solid. And like I said, it's a throwback to the '80s type storylines that were
Awesome,
going on at the time. Just big fun kind of science fictiony stories with your favorite characters.
awesome, awesome. Moving on. We see we have a little bit of a DC thing here.
Yeah,
So Alfred has returned.
yeah. So the horrendous run of that Tom King did on Batman, that's my personal opinion. uh, he uh he made Batman into a whiny guy that couldn't do anything without his girlfriend Catwoman's say so over. He just in within that storyline, Alfred gets killed by Bane, and I didn't really read the run of Tom King's Batman, but I didn't really have a problem with Alfred dying. He's sort of like one of those characters that he's kind of fun to have around, but I mean he doesn't really serve any great purpose.
Mhm.
I don't so the fact that they're bringing him back, I'm kind of like, why? And this is a new series. I think it comes out next week. Batman versus Robin, and yeah, next week. And so yeah, it's a number one, and they bring back Alfred. So those collectors out there may want to grab it up. It is written by Mark Wade, who's a solid writer. I don't care for the for the guy personally for some of the bad things I feel were bad things that he did, disingenuous things that he did towards another creator. We won't get into that here because that's not our focus. But yeah, I mean, if you like Mark Wade, there is I will say this: there is an interesting conundrum that you can get into with creators. We won't maybe we'll go into in depth with this at a later time, but I just want to touch upon it here. Whereas if the creator, writer, or artist or whatever does some bad things in their real life, does that impede you enjoying their work? And to what degree does that happen? And that's kind of an interesting thing. Another guy kind of did a video on YouTube about that as well, and that's an interesting thing because there's certain creators that I've kind of blocked out that I will never read or watch or again because of something they did, but then there's others where they have done bad things. I think there's time, the phrase time heals all wounds is valid. Like HP Lovecraft was notorious racist, but he was kind of a creature of his own time,
Right.
and the stories now have kind of have a resonance that's there. So I think as a creator, and then they're kind of questioning things about the writer of Alice in Wonderland. But yeah, there's I think that time does is a factor in it, but yeah, there is certain creators, and then that's a good question for our audience in the comments. Is there something that a creator does that would definitely turn you off from them for
Yeah.
a lifetime?
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm human just like anybody. I think most people are. And there, I agree
Mhm.
with you. There are certain folks that get a pass, so to speak, and there are other folks that I will never revisit again or want to hear from or whatever. It is what it is. But and H.P.
Mhm.
Lovecraft is actually that's a good example because holy crap! Like as time goes on, there's been a lot more H.P. Lovecraft kind of more focus or kind of just like as a backdrop. George R.R. Martin is famous for pulling in bits and pieces, just outright, just copying, carbon copy, paste into his novels. Some of the things to build his world building.
Mhm.
That's not strange at all, for sure. Like where good artists, what do they say? Good artists steal, and
Yeah.
sometimes they're beloved, and sometimes they run afoul, and
Mhm.
it is what it
Well,
is.
yeah, and everybody is human, and they all have their flaws. And
Right.
H.P. Lovecraft was notoriously reclusive. He didn't go out. So the fact that he was um kind of fearful of people that were different from him
Mhm.
is makes sense for his personality. In fact, he was scared of women. Most of the most horrific images uh, of his creatures are have feministic qualities. We won't go into it since we're a family friendly
Right on. Right on.
channel. But yeah, so the fact that he had these mindsets isn't too surprising, and it makes sense for his time and how he was. And obviously yeah, he probably wasn't that great of a person, but but yeah, he's left us with some of the some imagery and stories that have captured the minds of thousands,
Oh yeah,
millions of people. So
and it will continue to expire generations, going
Mhm.
forward. So yeah, beg, borrow, and steal the good stuff, and then leave the other stuff in
Great.
the dustbin of history. But in any case, moving on.
Yep.
Um, so Indiana Jones, this is interesting. Boy, I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I don't know. We'll
Right.
see.
Basically, I pulled this just for the cute picture of today, the the reunion of Indiana Jones and Short Round. If you scroll down, there's the I forget who posted it on Twitter, but yeah,
It's like
it's a kind of a cute picture of the two of them together again.
that's awesome.
And yeah, and Harrison Ford's obviously promoting the new Indiana Jones movie. It's one of the it's sort of like Rings of Power. I have no opinion of it until it comes out, and
We'll see.
the last movie wasn't very good.
The Crystal
As
Skull or whatever.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and it's notoriously been bagged, especially by South Park,
That's
of
what I
how
was going to
bad.
say. There's a
Yeah.
very famous sequence that is not family friendly at all, not safe for work. Not, and I think if you know, you know. But yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, and the those guys out on the YouTubes that's digging up information about the new movie, all they're saying is doom and gloom. So who knows? There's a rumor that Indiana Jones dies in the fifth one. So and that his mantle's handed off to a female archaeologist or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe
Uh,
it works, maybe it doesn't.
mhm.
I think what not I'll hop up on a little bit of a mini soapbox for this, but if anybody who's a video gamer out there understands this, they understand the hype machine very, very well. And unfortunately, what happens is, and it's happened to every major franchise on video games since, but probably about the only one that has weathered the storms pretty fairly well has been Nintendo. That's a whole other thing. But for the most part, in video games for like the last 20 years or so, if not longer, you'd have these wonderful franchises. And then all of a sudden, the next iteration of them or whatever, the hype machine would be turned up to full blast. I'm thinking about, Cyberpunk 2077, and how amazing it's going to be and all this and that. And then when it actually comes out, it's a mess. It's a spaghetti thrown against the wall kind of mess. And they got to kind of fix it. And then, a year later on, they fix a lot of the things, but they definitely release these things that are half baked. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I think we've been suffering from that for like the last decade or so for movies and famous IP that we love. You have this drumbeat for, oh, we're going to get the new this or the new that. And then when it comes out, I don't know if it's just, the hype that just kills it, or if it's somewhere along those lines, or if it's, deserve it or not. But like, we are definitely in the throes of that for Rings of Power, as an example, Indiana Jones. Like that's, these things are, it's unfortunately starting to look more ugly, like where that hype is just unwarranted. And you get to a certain point, like where people just turn it off and they don't care, that's, I think that's a fair,
Yeah.
valid criticism to leverage at these things. And at the end of the day, I just want to, like you always say, just give me a good storyline, let the character build up, do your world building, classic like Dune, like Denis Villeneuve. He did that so good, and other famous directors that we've covered on our main show and in passing, where they have that great artistic vision and they can execute on it. And yeah, it's a little bit different. They mix and match and things, but it works. But boy, all this to say that it's very rare when lightning strikes, and it's very hard for them to thread that needle and have it strike again and again and again. And when they do try to make it strike again and again, people just get tired of it. It's oversaturated, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'll step off my little spiel there.
Oh,
So
and
hope springs eternal.
Yep.
I agree with you. I'm probably not gonna. I'm gonna hold back on this unless there's a significant force there to cover this from even from the as a news item from the standpoint of a podcast. We'll see. But
and as you step off your soapbox, I'll step on mine. If I sent you a link
Preach.
for YouTube's atrocity corner, or I forget her name, atrocity guide down on our list.
Here we go. Yep, right.
Yeah. So she put out a video last week called "The Kidnapping Filmmakers of North Korea."
Okay.
This is a fascinating documentary. This is about an actress and director, which were married. They were kidnapped by Kim Jong Il back in 1978, and basically he kidnapped them to revitalize their film industry. Kim Jong Il, obviously, everything's owned by the government in North Korea. Kind of a mysterious government that's kind of closed themselves off. I'm sure everybody's familiar with North Korea.
The Hermit Kingdom, as they are known by. Yep.
Yep. And so he kidnapped them because he was having he was very much fascinated by films, and he would import outsider movies. He was the only one that got to watch them. Like, he would have them translated into North Korea, but his translator, he would cut up the film so that they only got to hear it. So they were only translating lines from a movie. They didn't actually get to watch the movie and translate it for him. They were just translating lines. So that's kind of interesting that he was the only one that got to watch these movies. But yeah, so these actress and director were married. At the time they were kidnapped, they were divorced, but they were famous director and actress from South Korea, and he wanted a famous director to come and make movies for him. Obviously, if he offered it to him, more than likely they would have said no. So he kidnapped him, threw the director in prison, I think for several months, almost a year. He tried to escape a couple of times, but finally he got them to finally direct movies. The documentary is really great. Go out and watch it. It's very interesting in that he made them make speeches about being loving North Korea and coming there willingly. So South Korea had no idea that that was untrue. So they said, we don't want them, we don't trust them now. And the whole thing of them escaping and getting away is kind of bittersweet in the end. Again, I'll have you guys watch it to get the full story, but it's very fascinating. But the thing that stood out to me that I could relate to modern day cinema is the fact that the movies that North Korea were doing before they kidnapped Shin and had him direct movies, write direct movies, is that these propaganda movies, they're basically propaganda movies made by the government. They were very predictable stories where you had your struggles. The villains obvious. There were the Japanese, there were the Americans. So when you watch the movie, it was very predictable. You had your North Koreans or Koreans, because they didn't, North Koreans don't believe in the separations. It's all Korea to them. So you had the Koreans that were the heroes or the downtrodden, and you had the oppressors, the Japanese and the Americans, and you had the emperor at the president of Korea at the time. He would always come in and liberate. He was always the guy that would come in and save the day and everything. Very predictable. No one in North Korea liked the movies. There was a big black market for once videotapes became a thing. The black market for the South Korean movies were huge.
Right. Real
and yeah. And so when Shin was kidnapped and started making movies, Kim Jong-il gave him free reign to do those movies. And obviously there were some of the best movies that North Korea ever produced. In fact, they won some, I think one of them won a Russian film festival as well. But it just made me think that some of the movies now kind of echo that propaganda kind of thing, where they've become very, very predictable. Some of them have a clear message, and the message is key to the movies, not the story, not the characters, nothing. They're all kind of carbon copy characters that they have singular traits, whether they're all good or all evil. And it's very, and I'll let you decide what movies I'm talking about, or TV shows or whatnot. It really struck me how true that is to some of these movies that are very propagandistic and have a message, and the message is overweighs the stories, and that goes back to our thing of stories, characters are central. As long as that's there, because before this I always kind of compared them to after school specials. I don't know if you're old enough to remember those.
I
where
do.
they all had a message. And those younger out there that are watching this that aren't familiar with them, basically they talked on tough subjects like maybe teen pregnancy or drugs or something, where it was they were trying to teach you a lesson. So everything, all the characters were archetypal or stereotypical. In the story wasn't key to this. Sometimes the story was quite laughable and funny to us, but yeah, it was it at you with a message. And that's in a lot of the stuff today kind of reminds me of that. They're trying to hit you over the head with a message, and that never worked. I never those after school specials were mostly to laugh at. They never told an interesting story. I never cared for them. And there were also comic books that were similar to that, that were produced to teach you a lesson or message. Those never worked. Those that did work were the ones that interweaved it with the comic book. There's a notorious a classic story in Amazing Spider-Man where Norman Osborn, or no, it's Norman's son, who's friends with Peter Parker, gets hooked on drugs. And it's told in a dramatic way. There's not it's not beating you over the head with the story, but it's interwoven into what's going on with Spider and him fighting his villains, but at the time his best friends dealing with the drug problem. And it's a really good story. That works. That's timeless. Whereas if they treated it like a special issue where the Spider-Man had to beat the drugs, fight the drugs, it wouldn't have worked. As long as you have a good story that interweaves, and that was what Shin did for Kim Jong-il. He made interesting stories that protected Kim Jong-il's message, and people loved him for it, and was big in North Korea and was big fans of it because it worked. So yeah, it's all about story.
No, that's so true. And even we're the generation that grew up on questioning everything. I think of like Trust No One, the X-Files, that kind of thing. But and even Reading Rainbow. I'm from the Reading Rainbow generation. I loved it. And there was that classic thing, like where he would tell you about a book or a story, and he would say, but you don't have to take my word for it. And that is something that I've carried with me my entire life. And it served me very well, because you just don't know until you figure it out for yourself, if it's for you or not. There's certainly that individual choice, but we are definitely, unfortunately, the more interconnected the world gets, and we have this big, wonderful thing called the internet, and everybody was very hopeful. There were manifestos, positive manifestos, written about, this new wonderland and freedom and da-da-da-da. And here we are, 20, 30 years into it, or wherever you want to start, where the internet became, a thing in everybody's household or phone or whatever. And here we are. And instead of it being more open, we have these much more smaller walled gardens here. And it just, you can't be online 10 minutes without being hit with some kind of message or hype or propaganda or something, along those lines. I'm not going to get into all that, but
and
the audience can make their own decision on that, because everybody's run across it, even in the most freest country in the world, so to speak. We still it's rife. It's out. It doesn't really matter where you go. It's out there in some shape or form. And the scary part is when it's one thing to kind of know about it, or to know where the money behind something is, or whatever. But it's a little bit more kind of Krungus territory, like nightmare fuel, when it's hidden from you, and you can't make that active decision of watching something or something. I don't want to get too deep into this, but it's a different kind of evil in a way, where your choice is taken from you, and you're not informed on what you're watching or what you're seeing or who funds it or that. It's a whole cottage industry, and that's why you have so many folks that, like, they can see something, and then they kind of default to, like, well, I don't know, conspiracy theory, blah blah blah, whatever. But that whole dynamic on one side or the other, propaganda or conspiracy, it's all there. So
and to tie it back to our main show this week, Tron. I didn't hammer this home in our main show, but Tron's was written in that hopeful attitude pre-internet, kind of that it was the forefather of that, where they were hopeful. And it's sort of today with the master program of Tron trying to lock everything down into a singular message, and Kevin Flynn going into the program, into the system and breaking free, destroying the master program so that all the programs are free. And the whole idea of a free internet was even back then, they're very optimistic back then. And so yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how, like you said, everything is getting locked down to that master program where there's a singular thought process.
There is a I don't that's a whole I don't want to get into it. Stuff, we're quickly approaching territory I don't want to get into this kind of stuff,
absolutely.
But in any case, what do they say? What's the old saying? Don't believe believe half of what you hear and even less of what you see, or something like that. I'm not doing justice, but that is so true, and that's timeless advice.
Yep.
But anyway, at the end of the day, that's very cool. I'm a big history buff, so I'm definitely going to be watching this for sure.
Atrocity Guide. She only produces a documentary every few months, but every one of them a definite recommend. She covers various topics. She's all over the place, but every single one of them's good, great even. And she's well researched. If you're kind of interested in a subject and you see that she's covered it, watch it, because you'll find out something you didn't know about it. Because I'd always heard about the kidnapping in North Korea of those filmmakers. Had no idea of the full story, and she goes all in. And it's only an hour long, and she covers so much information. It's very informative. So,
and she kind of throw a highlight on. I believe we both had seen this organically. The fall of Phoenix Jones from so many months ago. Like I know I found this through that. So definitely, what a great resource. This is why folks love YouTube, and why kind of to put a bow on it. This is exactly why folks there's just such a splintering and a fracturing of the media landscape, and YouTube content creators are filling that gap, and they're doing a damn good job, I would say, for entertainment standpoint, for sure. I know I get 95% of my entertainment from YouTube, from folks that I like to watch and whatnot. The other 5% are shows that are reserved, or shows or movies that are ones that I know about that are word of mouth, even that, but anyway, I digress, but very cool.
Yep.
Cool. So as we roll on here, we have the dipping back into the Disney and MCU, Fantastic Four. So yeah, I saw that they, what was it? That pretty much the highlights that I heard was they didn't do any trailers. The only thing they did, which is in the vein of less is more, and I think that's the right way to do this. If they're going to hype the hell out of something, so to speak, is less is more. They just did the logos. Is that right?
I believe so. I wasn't there. I'm not a Disney file watching all the highlights from it, but I think they announced the actress for Invisible Woman, but basically Matt Shakman is going to direct Fantastic Four. I think he's replacing somebody. I think he's stepping down from directing the Star Trek movie that's probably never going to happen, and switched over to Fantastic Four. Matt Shakman, he was the showrunner for WandaVision. A lot of people have said that was probably one of the best series that Marvel has put out, and I would agree that it was the most interesting one so far. And but Matt Shakman, he's been directing stuff for a long time, even in TV. And one of the first gigs he had was directing Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which I watched their podcast, the Always Sunny podcast, and the latest one they mentioned the fact that he's directing the new Fantastic Four. They were talking about one of the movies or one of the episodes that he directed in that particular podcast. I believe it was the one where the gang kidnaps somebody.
Okay, that's yeah. No, he just reading this list, he has bona fides for sure. So
Yep.
but hope cautiously optimistic like a lot of this stuff and see what
Yep.
happens for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
he Mad Men. I wish I was a little bit more. I'm a pretty big Mad Men nerd, and I should if I was worth my salt, I would know maybe a little bit more of like what he directed. But anyway, regardless, Fargo, classic. Game of Thrones, classic. These other ones are a little bit more. It's Always Sunny is always funny.
And he's
For sure.
directed some of the boys, so
Yeah, he did.
He's he knows how to do super people.
Very well rounded for sure. Definitely has some depth for sure. Very cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, moving on. Okay.
On to the next thing in the bag. Oh yeah.
Trouble in Paradise. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But
yeah, I don't think this tells us anything new. Basically they're not going to do any Star Wars films till after 2024, which is not a surprise. They've gotten better success with their Star Wars TV shows, so that's where they're focusing their energy. No one's begging for a Ryan Johnson Star Wars movie series. Yeah, which he's in interviews he still says is alive and still very well going to get made. Who knows? If it doesn't happen, I'm not going to cry into my Cheerios. I know there's a Rogue One movie that's on hiatus as well. None that I've heard as far as movies I'm interested in. So I think they're wisely not making any Star Wars movies at this point. I don't think they'll actually greenlight or actually start filming something unless there's a story that triggers them into making it. I think that it's easier for them to try various things as far as TV shows, and maybe if it catches fire, they'll make a movie. I wouldn't be surprised if they did a Baby Yoda movie.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And this is a criticism that has been that they were very well aware of, even rolling up before they released the very last one. All the titles rolled together, but there was talk like of them, and actually it kind of cooled down quite a bit as far as like straying away from like the main the main trilogy, or off that main kind of Skywalker storyline, like where they did Solo, and I'm a big fan of that one. And in Rogue One, which was even more successful. Solo was probably not. Solo was dumped on a lot, I think, unfairly a little bit, but it just kind of, I think it kind of came out. If anything, it was a victim of timing when it came out. I think it kind of had maybe a little bit better reception, but I did hear murmurings and rumorings that they were not going to do any movie anytime soon, and that was like 3 or 4 years ago. So I have no doubt that they're probably wise on that. Again, this guy goes back to oversaturation and less is more, that kind of thing. And they're perfectly, if you're a Star Wars fan, I'm not dumping on that at all. If you certainly have your enjoyment from the Bad Batch and from the Clone Wars and some of the smaller screen things that they're doing, so they definitely still have play there. But as far as like a film, I agree with that it's probably a wise thing to save the big juice for like a movie, like where it's really, they can capture that magic again and get the fandom and the nerddom kind of excited about that. I've heard different things. Just like everything else, Kathleen Kennedy is kind of like this fun punching bag, so to speak, for the internet at large. Whether it's deserved or not, whatever. I'm not going to get into that, but and it just seems like everybody kind of takes a turn under the bus.
Right.
Whether it's Star Wars related, whether it's warranted or not, it's just kind of like, but that kind of goes back to like the fandom, and we're I think fans are out there, and there's enough hunger that we're making our own content, and we're being, not only are we making our own content, but we're consuming it too. And I think that's a good thing ultimately. We kind of get wrapped up around the axle sometimes, but who doesn't?
And I know there's YouTubers that we kind of feed into maybe the hate sometimes, occasionally, with stuff we cover. But yeah, there's certain channels that are clickable, and we're not casting any shade towards them, where it's where they get their views for bad mouthing certain properties or certain people or certain creators, deservedly or undeservedly, however you look at it. But
some
yeah,
of them are some of those shots are very much warranted. I will say
yeah,
that. Not all
oh
of
yeah,
them, not all of
right,
them,
right,
but there are
yeah,
some times like where they
yeah,
screw up and they need to be like,
yeah.
kind of taken by the lapels and what are you doing?
Yeah, and sometimes and more I think that, well, uh the fact that they spotlight certain properties or certain shows or movies, and spotlight what they see as wrong or potentially wrong about a particular property. I almost think that maybe it's better to not do that, to just let it go and let it die its quiet death. Whereas,
Yep.
if you spin up the factory of whatever to the
PR
spotlight what's
machine.
wrong with it, you're in effect promoting it, and you're going to inspire maybe some hate watching,
Well,
and where it maybe wasn't warranted.
well, and that's the thing is like there are a lot of fundamental and just the same thing that I will throw a hammer at over and over again is that we like to think that we're so far evolved in the postmodern yada yada whatever, but in reality, no, we're not. No, we're not. The basic fundamentals are there. They've always been there. They won't change, and that's a fact. That's a fact. Instead of say, for example, not to beat a dead horse, but rings of power. That whole PR thing. If you would have just taken kind of a more hands-off approach and just let it go. I think one of the hate watchers that I did, I think it was X-Ray Girl. She actually made a really good point, which was, if you would just let it be, and it truly is good, it'll rise to the top and it'll take care of itself. You don't have to wage these big long battles with the fandom and whatnot. None of that's needed at all. And there's a boy, and I'm not surprised because I think Rings of Power is like pretty much arguably definitely one of Amazon Prime's original content that they've come out with, that they had to learn those lessons. They got to get their knees scraped up a little bit to figure out how to juxtapose it and not be so heavy-handed on it. And some hate is absolutely unwarranted. I will fully admit that, but at the same time, you're supposed to be talking about the content and not the drama surrounding the content. And when you do that, you lose every single time. These old Hollywood, companies and studios, they understand that very well. And show business understands that. And some tech companies like Amazon, they're new to the game. So as powerful as they are on that side, they still have to learn their lesson, I guess, or whatever for this or that. But yeah, I fully into that. But anyway, that's all I'll say. That little.
Yep. Yeah, they warranted the Scorn of Gorn for their the way they handled the promotion of Rings of Power. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. You just leave it be. Like nobody's House of Dragons doesn't have all this, this thing, despite having controversial picks. Nobody focuses on that because they don't care about it, because they're talking about the entertainment, and that's how it's supposed to be. That's the optimum ideal situation to like where, you attract new fans. That's the whole point of this, is to attract new fans, and to convert some of the normies into watchers, into the fandom. Anyway, but going on, but and we both said we are both big fans of anything that new comes out. Don't prejudge it too harshly. Let it be. And I think we've been a lot more steady. I like our approach as opposed to the approach of some other folks out there that just kind of they just Wild West and then they go crazy on it. It's like, no, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
But anyway, steady hand as it goes.
Yeah.
But kind of plugging.
Yeah. If everybody is a bad guy, then no one's a bad guy.
Right. Yeah. And going from one cult to another.
Yeah. Lezar. Are you familiar with him?
I am not.
Okay.
Not familiar at all.
All right. Well, you're a recent convert to Red Letter Media. as a old school red letter. Well, I'm not old school. I'm old school, but
Oh,
I'd say mid school
Sure.
of red letter media. You have to go back to Best of the Worst, where they do their watch of Rim Lezar. It's a truly
Okay.
bizarre musical, kids musical from the 80s. It's like 45 minutes. It was only available on VHS, which they watched on their show. I think they watched a couple other movies. Rim Lezar was their favorite of all of them. It won Best of the Worst that week, and yeah, it's definitely, that one's definitely worth watching. That, I think that cult video of their YouTube video inspired them to re-release a remastered version Blu-ray that comes out, I think, this week or sometime in September anyway. That I proposed to Mike maybe us getting this individually and watching it, some similar to our New York Ninja, and maybe give it a watch. But yeah, any of those that watch Red Media or haven't, definitely watch that and see if it's kind of tickles your fancy more into maybe watching this this Blu-ray that's coming out, a high def
Yeah.
version of Grim Lezar.
I would love to. Yeah, nothing can immunize you against the best of the worst or whatever than watching Frozen 5 million times, or pick some child classic favorite that you've seen a million times,
Yeah.
especially if you have younger siblings come up. So yeah, I'm all on board for that. We will definitely revisit this and see what's up for sure.
All right.
Awesome. All right, breaking into horror here. This sucks.
Yep. Peter Straub has passed away this past week on September 5th. Yeah, very sad news. He's one of the legends in horror, right up there with Stephen King. He's much more literate. I would say his prose is much more stylized and much richer than Stephen King's, along with his plots. Some of the classics is Ghost Story. He wrote The Tulsa Man with King. Julia is another great one. He wrote some mystery novels that kind of circulated or were involved Vietnam vets that were really interesting. Coco is one of I think it's a trilogy that's really good. Yeah, he wrote many classics. He's right up there with me. Yeah, those yeah, Hellfire Club, The Throw Mystery, and Coco. Yeah, all of them are fantastic. He wrote many great novels. He did take his time with the novels, so he didn't spit them out like King did. So I guess maybe that's why they're much more crafted and are much more literate. But yeah, you can't go wrong with it, with his books, and it's sad that we won't see anything in the future from him. And condolences to his family and friends. We didn't know him personally, but yeah, to our sadness. But yeah,
He leaves behind a body of work, which it'd be fun to kind of maybe honor him and do a show on some of his highlights for sure.
Yep.
Indeed,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah, and thanks to you, I'm a new convert to I would say to horror. Didn't realize that it was so rich and good. But that's just, you never know until you try it. But kind of moving on.
Mhm.
So they're gonna do something with Willow. Really interesting.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, they put out a new trailer. I haven't watched the new trailer yet. I think they spotlighted that Christian Slater is going to be in this new one. I
Okay.
think that's what the article says there. Yeah, and so yeah, there's a new TV series which is a sequel to Willow. We're hoping to do maybe Willow in a future main podcast where we spotlight it pre the new series coming out. I watched the first trailer for it. It looks like it's going to be kind of a fun story. I Since it's more of a quirkier, littler known Lucas project. I hope that maybe they'll take it in a more fun route. Maybe aren't maybe not so many eyes are looking at this project as, say, a Star Wars project would have, and maybe it's a little bit more quirkier and more interesting story. But yeah, it's one of those 80s movies that didn't land particularly. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, and it's getting a sequel. But yeah, and Warwick Davis, it'll be fun to see him again in his character from the original movie.
Well, that's awesome. And Willow is like one of those things that kind of became its own little kind of thing that was very beloved by the super fans. And good for them. Maybe they're getting a hint of maybe reaching in their own grab bag and kind of pulling out some of these things and dusting them off and doing them justice.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Going on from Disney to Netflix. I've kind of heard rumors about this too, months or quite a few weeks ago.
Yeah, they haven't made anything official, but yeah, on some of their series like Stranger Things, they're kind of breaking them up and not putting them all out all at once. So yeah, I think they're kind of dipping their toe into it. They're looking at Hulu and Paramount and HBO Max, where they're putting things out weekly, and also the fact that some of those make a cheaper version with ads. Netflix is really looking into adding ads into their stuff, which I don't particularly like, but oh well, it's neither here nor there. If someone wants a cheaper version of Netflix with ads, that's a big option for them. But yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely money driven, and
oh, absolutely.
Essentially what I'd heard was they're paying attention to like what works and what doesn't. And of course, Netflix was the first ones out, the first premier streaming service until Disney came along, and there were some other ones that kind of came along, and Hulu kind of always just been floated around and whatnot. But it is essentially that criticism was, they're understanding how they make money and keep eyeballs on the screen, and that is in fact by weekly releases.
Yeah, and while the Netflix strain was running, where they didn't see any drop off of subscribers, or if they did, they were all constantly getting new subscribers, and now they've kind of hit a wall and are falling down on subscribers. Obviously, there's still this monolith as far as streaming. So they've dropped down, but they're not in dire straits or anything.
Oh no,
but when you start seeing negatives instead of, while you previously you were seeing positives, then people start asking questions, and I think they're trying to pivot and maybe expand again as far as numbers. So yeah, they're going to tweak the system until it works for them. So yeah, it makes sense that they're going to do this. They're going to pivot and are open to it, because previously I think the head of Netflix was very much opposed to weekly. He wanted it all binge drops, but yeah. So the fact that they're kind of opening up to it tells you that they're looking at different ways of doing things.
Yeah, and just kind of touch on what I said before, like Amazon Prime being primarily a technology company and looking at it from that lens. Netflix was there first, and that you kind of see this weird kind of hybrid, like where they try to operate like a tech company, but it doesn't quite work that way for entertainment. But now they're kind of a hybrid now, and Netflix is definitely they've always had great content. They were one of the first ones to bring out really good original content, and good for them. Anything to keep good storylines coming, I'm all a big fan for. And at some point you had to make this transition, because you can't have endless growth, which is exactly, it was like a hockey stick when they first came out, whether it was from the DVD or the first thing, like where they had streaming, like where I remember it was the guy in Sweden, the mafia guy or whatever, I can't remember. I enjoyed it anyway. It was like kind of like the thing, and that didn't quite catch fire like they wanted, but it was still good enough. But that was just the early days. Now I mean, you got to pivot and you got to keep eyeballs on and you got to adapt for sure. That is one thing a tech company has to do. An entertainment company does as well. But it'll be interesting. So moving on to The Boys, I always love to see more content from The Boys. So this is that spinoff series, I believe, correct?
Yeah, Genevieve or Gen 5, whatever whatever it is. Yeah, this is inspired from the comic book, of course. In the comic book, it was Gen 5 was more of it was sort of a parody of the X-Men in a very perverted and dark way, where you had the perverted Professor X and the members of it. But yeah, so they're kind of refining it, so to speak, and making it a college for superheroes. So we'll see if their take lands, which it most likely will. Basing it on the track record of The Boys TV show. So yeah, and it looks like the same showrunner Kripke is also doing this spin-off series. So yeah, since it's the same creative team, it should be good. Yeah, G-Men was what they were called in in the comic book. Yeah.
There's only I smile because there's like so many wonderful things that can come from this if they nail it. I'm sure they will, but that'll be cool to maybe check out and see.
Yep.
Hopefully, like I said, my only criticism would be please don't bastardize it and just make it oversaturated. Let's not
don't spread yourself too thin.
Right.
Yeah, as long as you keep the quality control up. Oh yeah. Man-Thing's coming back onto the screen. There's a Werewolf by Night movie. It's coming out on Disney Plus. They showed the trailer, which looked much like a 30s or 40s style horror movie, black and white thing. And then for a brief second or two, you see Man-Thing, which they've got a picture of him on the article, spotlighting him. So we don't know how much of him's going to be in it. Man-Thing was always kind of an interesting character that I was always fascinated as a kid with. He's I guess Marvel's answer to Swamp Thing of DC. But Man-Thing, he feeds on people's fears, so he's always attracted by fearful people. So if you got a werewolf involved, werewolf's going to frighten some people. So obviously Man-Thing's not too far away. In Werewolf by Night was a comic book in the 70s that Marvel produced. They got into, since Werewolf and Dracula and all those were in public domain, they said, why not write some stories about them? So they did they did Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night. I didn't really read those at the time. I've started to dip into them in various epic collections. Have read some of the stories. Roy Thomas, one of our go-to guys, Gary Conway, Steve Gerber. Gerber wrote a lot of Man-Things. He's also he's the creator of Man-Thing, I think. No. I'm sorry. I think Stan Lee or Roy Thomas created Man-Thing, but Steve Gerber created Howard Duck, and he wrote a lot of Man-Thing stuff. So
very cool. Yeah, I'm definitely more on the DC side of Swamp Thing. Like that is just a great IP that you will be pleasantly surprised more than not. Even going back to the original TV show where like short-lived on ABC or something like that, and I enjoyed it. Or maybe it was USA. I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. But Man-Thing, that's it. I've never actually encountered Man-Thing, so it would be very interesting to kind of go back and find Savage Tales #1 in my Marvel whatever subscription and see if I could read that up and get up on that. That looks cool. Looks interesting. We'll see.
Savage Tales. It also had I think the first appearance of Conan the Barbarian. I think that came out before the regular Conan comic book came out. Definitely Savage Tales was the precursor to Savage, the Savage Sword of Conan, the oversized black and white magazine that they that was more adult oriented for the Conan comic books for Marvel.
Very cool. Very cool. All right.
There was only 4 issues of Savage Tales, I believe.
Awesome. Yeah, getting into our recommendations. You want me to go first, and then you can kind of button it up.
Sure.
But yeah, I was gonna say one of my one of the things, and I've had to sidestep a lot of this stuff to kind of find it myself, because I guess I'm one of the rare, or we're one of the rare channels, I guess, that are okay with publicly being like, we like this thing and there's nothing wrong with it. But anyway, like I said about that content, Indie Geek is one of the ones that I've found. And again, this kind of fits in that rule of thumb that I say all the time, which is you want to find like good YouTube channels that are like just like that are hundreds of thousands, not quite a million or millions. Not to say that you can't find good content with the ones that are bigger out there, but the ones that are making really great content, if you have any kind of like, if you're like me and you're not a native Tolkien fan or whatever, and you just have interesting nerd questions about this background or who these characters are, or kind of the silliness that is the nerddom for Tolkien. And don't blast me, I'm a newbie for this. But anyway, one of the ones I mentioned on our things, which was Nerd of the Rings, a great one, but also this one I found quite a few very interesting what ifs, like what if Sauron got the ring, or what if this, or just different kind of things, like they're playing on that, as well as more background material and kind of just stuff is just it can be fascinating anyway, from the right lens. But that would be my recommendation for this week. Is Indie Geek. Shout out to this YouTube channel. You won't go wrong. And I think that they knew what they were doing, because a lot of the things that it was recommending were made a year or two in the roll up to the Rings of Power. And credit to them, because they were very prescient to think forward and to have all these things kind of be popping up on my algorithm. I'm sure like it is for others, but just a direct shout out. You can't go wrong. It's a pretty good take on it. But anyway, with that, I will throw it over to you. And we have your YouTube recommendation.
Yep, it's a Whang thing. Justin Whang. You suggested, I recommended a few months back, Wavy Web Surfer. He who did kind of 15-minute videos on sort of internet history, that he always has kind of a positive spin on things. So Whang is sort of like his dark evil twin.
Okay, very cool. Sure.
He gets into the history of the internet, but the darker, more twisted side of things.
Okay.
If you kind of go through some of the topics, some of them seem to be not so safe for work or family.
I see that.
which is true. He edits things so that they can be on YouTube.
Sure.
He does a good job of getting the point across without showing you the point, so to speak.
Right. Sure.
And he does he's very much like Wavy Web Surfer, in that he does it in a humorous fashion. And both of them are very good with details. They research their subjects to a T. They both, you know very well that they both know what they're talking, their subject matter to perfection. So, and Justin Whang, he's older than he looks. And so he's been in the trenches of the internet for a while now. So some of it he speaks from experiences back in those weird forum days, where those weird websites that a lot of these stories come from. He was there, he was living it. So yeah, and he also goes into a lot of lost media stuff. And he's had such a big audience that a lot of those lost media or mysteries have been solved through his channel, and which is very cool. But yeah,
that is cool. Yeah, definitely some scatological focus here, but it is the internet and YouTube, so your mileage may vary.
Right,
sure.
right. Yeah, if you heard kind of a weird story from the internet past that you're kind of curious about but don't want to do a search on because of what might pop up, look on his channel. He's probably talked about it, and he does like a user-friendly version of the events. So with certain things blurred out and or you know, he sometimes does kind of interpretations of what goes on with say you know, he maybe with a hot dog weenie for certain stories.
Sure.
If something happens to something that's similar to that.
Right on. Yeah, these are things you're never going to get on corporate media for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
The depth and the power of the internet reign supreme in this day and age for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm waiting for that good evil twin collaboration between the two. I see it happening. Although the internet may explode that day.
Oh, that would be cool. That would be cool to watch for sure. And then a little bit more pedestrian and more of our the thing. And this kind of circles back to what you were saying in that article that we covered for like just a good solid title. It sounds like to pick up and enjoy if you want to, if you so choose.
Yeah, it came out last week. It wasn't like I don't think it was like a huge seller, so you still may be able to, you should be able to find a copy of it in your local comic book shop if you go out this week. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. I enjoyed it. You know, there's something to be said for a classic story, or a story that strives to be a kind of a classic story. And like I said, it's well told and it's drawn very well. The art's fantastic, so you can't go wrong. And if you're wanting to get your kids into comic books, and you think and they're already excited about the movies, this is a great one to throw into their lap for them to read.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would just piggyback on that and recommend this animated show, or the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Only had a couple year run. I'm pretty sure it's on Disney Plus, but you can't go wrong with this. It's like kind of its own bookended little series, a different kind of take. Very good. I enjoyed it, but and kind of pulling up the caboose here. Unless you had anything else to add about Avengers or the animated show.
Nah, yeah.
I've kind of been there's not really soapboxy or cringe corner or anything like that, but I've dropped hints throughout this. But essentially, what I think is we're this and I've recommended this gentleman before. Call me Chato, where he's the former network exec, and kind of gives a hot take on that. A pretty well-rounded opinion. You know, he does play into the fandom a little bit, to the hate watching a little bit, and that's okay, but because that's what you do on the internet and YouTube. But essentially, what his point was on this video, which is what I have not seen anybody talk about, which is the fact that there is such a breadth and depth of YouTube content creators that are all over the place. I mean, there's any kind of thing that you could love. There are truck drivers that have their own channel. There are loggers. There are, all the way out to like what we cover, inside and out. But basically, he kind of touches on this point finally, which is that whether Hollywood or big studios understand this or not, they're going to do what they're going to do. But at the same time, there's this new phenomenon that has kind of popped up, like where I don't think they quite know how to take it or handle it. And I think that's where we kind of see this mishandling of this or that. But essentially, basically, it is there is a very big gap there. And what I mean by that is that, like, maybe they didn't make something that we liked, or maybe they were kind of close, but we just don't love it or whatever. The fact is that we've been entertaining ourselves. Like where you can have, just like I showed, and I have followed these for years, whether they be a Star Wars YouTube channel, whether they be a Lord of the Rings one, or whether they be something else in between or comic book related. I've followed them for years. And it's kind of, you kind of like, well, that's kind of every day for me. and I'm sure you have had your own experience in finding what you like on YouTube, personalized to your taste and interests. But that's kind of the thing, which is the more and more people that I talk to about folks our age, the more I was kind of like, oh man, I must be just by my own self. And I just must be like this own lone person out here just enjoying YouTube for my vast majority of my entertainment likes. But no, I'm not special. This is a phenomenon that is very much true in this day and age, where YouTube is just the de facto entertainment hub that folks glom onto. And whether you find the hate watchers or you know, there's some trash TV like TMZ stuff like that. I'm part of that too, as far as like consuming it a little bit. I don't like it all the time because it gets old after a while. It's like, okay, I got it. You don't like it. It's this, it's that, whatever. But once in a while they have a point of view, and sometimes you just want to watch a guilty watch. But for the most part, I like to seek out more positive content that kind of gives me a little bit more background, and it gives you that more bang of the buck. I think this is kind of like an extension of years and years ago when Twitter wasn't such a dumpster fire. I remember, because I was part of it, you know, you go on Twitter and there would be your favorite show, your weekly network favorite show, old TV before it died or is dying or whatever you want to call that, where you could kind of jump on that and you could have this collective experience of like where you're watching in real time and having different conversations with that. I remember this. I remember being so excited when Stargate Universe was on. And again, that wasn't very a well-loved property of Stargate, but that's okay. But I do remember having interactions with the stars on Twitter, and these guys were not major big power player stars. They were more lesser known ones. And some of them went on to do more famous things, and they kind of kept their career going. And some of them didn't quite make the cut or whatever, and that's sad. Makes me sad because I love these characters and the actors and actresses who do them. But it's kind of an extension from that, I would say. So not really a soapbox to rant on anything, but I think this is a turning of the page going into the future. Boy, the first studio or entertainment company that understands this inside and out, that are maybe content creators that are from us, our generation and our way of life, when they can harness that, there's just going to be all kinds of wonderful things that will come from that. I don't think they've done it yet. And I think we're probably still little ways out there because unfortunately, we just get into these kind of battles or whatever. That's just one side effect of it, and it's bound to happen. But anyway, kind of Professor Mike here putting on a stupid little lecture here. But I think that it just goes to say that you know, it's a phenomenon, and I really just wish that there could be a little bit more peaceful you know, a collaboration between, and not and unfortunately YouTube has done this over and over and over again, like where they try to take the cream of the crop and try to make original content, and they try to make YouTube what it will never be. It'll never be a Netflix. It's never going to be an HBO Go. It's never going to be a Instagram. It's never going to be a TikTok. They need to play to those strengths, and I think they're kind of they're getting there. Maybe we'll see, but you can't treat things like the enemy. You have to kind of go in and be very forgiving, whether it's on the fan side or the big studio side. But boy, we've seen the results of when they don't get that for sure. And anyway, too.
Yeah. So, and to rebuttal you, it's YouTube's dead. It's all about TikTok, man. Right. Watch my dance challenge coming up on TikTok.
Right. Yeah, no thanks. I'm good. Yeah, TikTok is not going to be around in 10 years. And that's my personal opinion. But you know what will be around in 10 years? YouTube will be. That's for damn sure. That's what I feel like anyway. Or
at least something similar to YouTube.
Yeah,
there's a need for a site where the average Joe can put out a video and just speak their truth, whatever that is. And we've got you know, some of the most interesting, fascinating things I've seen are from fascinating, weird, and strange people that have posted something on YouTube
Absolutely.
or various other places.
Yeah.
And
And we're part of that story, the fact that we decided, hey, two dudes and they want to do, they're certainly not hot tags, but whatever, just more of like a holistic, here's some really cool stuff that we found and we want to share with you. And with that being said, we are always looking for feedback. We love to hear bad or good or whatever. I kind of get the wrap up being a bad cop, and I kind of throw a little bait out there a little bit. But if you don't like it, eat poop. I'm just kidding. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I don't know how quickly you could pull up or if you could find Gorn, the Scorn of Gorn. But I was before we head on out, I was creeping at the bottom of the grab bag and I pulled out I watched the latest 2 episodes of She-Hulk. Boy, oh yeah, there's not much to be said about that. When it's not completely flat. They have Tim Roth as Abomination in the 3rd episode where he's the 2nd and 3rd episode he's on. Those anytime he's on the screen, it's very enjoyable. He knows what's funny. He knows how to make it funny. Everybody else, including writers, I don't know if comedies is in their wheelhouse or not, but they're trying to take what's funny for Marvel and extending it into a full episode of a Marvel series, and it's not really working for me. The fact that it's only a half hour long, that gets me through it. I watched the episode 3 and was like, should I even watch the 4th episode right after? I might need some time. I went ahead and powered through it, but the key word was power through. Whereas watching an episode of like say House of the Dragon an hour later, I'm like, what? Oh, it's already over? What's going on? And so yeah, there's something to be said for an engaging story. But yeah, I'll definitely finish out the She-Hulk series because I do want to see the guest appearance by Daredevil and see his new outfit.
Now, is that a 6 or 8 show shot?
6
by and large.
6.
Okay,
yeah. All of their
the
series,
yeah,
so far has been 6, and except for I think Daredevil, I think it's in the double digits. I forget. I think it's like maybe 16 episodes, but that's not coming out for another couple of years. I think they're getting ready to film that.
Well, I hope
I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'll show up to that. I've had to make a line in the sand, and not for any particular reason or another, other than like I just don't have time to jump into these things. That's why I fully admit Kenobi, I did not watch the full thing from start to finish. I cheated, and I fast forwarded through the thing just to kind of get to the nugget of what I care about. And it is what it is. But
yeah, and yeah, my friend that's a big Marvel fan, she was like, Thor's on Disney Plus, Love and Thunder, watch it. So even though she wasn't a big fan of the movie, she wanted me to watch it, so I did watch it. I'm a big fan of TT, but this was a stumble for him. I know it's co-written by someone. I didn't recognize her name, so I wonder how much of an influence she had on it. It did have his style of humor in it, right. But I didn't know who it was. From the start of it, it thought it was one of his comedy movies, but then it wanted to be serious as well. It didn't bridge that gap very well, and for pretty much for the most of the movie came off as a buffoon, and that's not what, if someone's coming to a Thor movie, they're not looking for him to be a buffoon. They're looking for him to be a superhero. He could say some stupid things occasionally and make that Marvel humor. But if you make the Marvel humor the focus of the movie and the majority of the movie,
Inspired.
It's not going to work. Now everybody was up in arms with Jane Foster being the female Thor and how woke that was. It works better in the movie.
Okay.
The reasoning behind her becoming Thor, I don't know if it's a spoiler or not. I won't get into it, but it makes sense. It makes sense why she becomes Lady Thor and why. And she's not a Mary Sue in this. There's none of that. Now there is a bit of that girl power with her and Valkyrie that were pretty cringe inducing at times, but yeah, for the most part, it's okay. It's not the worst movie in the world.
Right.
If it was free on, if I had went out to the theater and paid money for it, I would be very disappointed. The fact that I watched it on Disney Plus at my own leisure. It was okay. And I was kind of I admit I was mostly half watching it. I was doing something else at the time, so yeah, it's one of those that I wouldn't invest a whole lot of time into, but yeah, it's okay. The only thing is I know they introduced Zeus in this, and I was like, oh wow, if they meet up with Hercules, that would be great, because Hercules is actually a pretty decent character in the Marvel universe.
Right.
They do just a little spoiler at the very end of the movie, after the credits, they introduce Hercules. So I was happy. I was definitely happy for that, and they got his look right. I liked how he looked. So so yeah.
Yeah, I would say
I can't wait till they make a movie and get him wrong, but yeah.
well, right, who knows, right? But yeah, kind of going in that vein, the comic book story arc of Jane Foster being Thor, I didn't have a problem with. I actually kind of liked it. I mean, was it the greatest storyline comic book series ever? No. But like the wokeness kind of that didn't fit either, and that was like several years ago. But I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't amazing or anything like that, but I never really had a problem with that anyway. But and I really wish I could muster some kind of like an interest in going to see the Thor movie, but I just, unfortunately, it's not necessarily that it sucks or it doesn't suck or it's woke or not woke. It's just that I have no interest to see it because I don't. There's just no hook there because it's like the 15th million Marvel movie, and I'm just kind of oversaturated,
Yeah. Yeah, on the plus side, it is short for a Marvel movie. Short for a Marvel movie is that it's right at 2 hours. So
really,
it's not. Yeah,
that's a good. I consider that a good thing because I think that be careful what you wish for. I remember being back in the day, like when you get out and seeing Batman or some film you just went gaga over, and you're like, oh man, I wish it could have been a little bit longer. And then when be careful what you wish for, then you get these big 3 hour long epics, and it's just like. Maybe not.
Right. Yeah. Maybe the editor was right this time.
Yeah. Maybe they're starting to understand that. And I will say this, and the strength in Disney is just like a technology company. I don't know, a lot of folks want to hear this, but they're not dumb. That what they're doing every time they have a new series out, they iterate. They're looking for that right combination of things that everybody loves. And it's going to take them a little bit of time, but I will say this. I think that by and large, Disney buying Star Wars and Disney buying I'm going to open up a can of worms with this one. But I think it's been a good thing overall that Disney did buy Marvel and then they bought, Star Wars. Overall, I think it was maybe a little bit less so for Star Wars, but that's a whole other thing. But I think that they've been, for the most part, they iterate like a technology company does with their with their platform, and they know how to tweak it. They're kind of lost in the woods a little bit right now, but I have no doubt that they'll come back around because, again, for our main show, shout out to our main show. If you haven't seen it yet, we covered Tron. And that's back in the day when Disney was innovative, and they have been very innovative. So check that out and see what we have to say on that and the extras that we cover for the history. But they're not afraid to do that. And I think that they should be applauded. When it works, nobody complains. But when it doesn't work, people complain. And there's always that too. But with that being said, I agree with your scorn of Gorn. That was a good one. And maybe that can be a recurring theme here.
Yeah, I think yeah, we'll bring him out whenever he needs to give the sworn to it.
Where it makes sense. Sure, absolutely.
Yep, and
Awesome.
he keeps away Loeb and Krungus. He
Absolutely.
scares them away. So he's
Yeah,
our protector of of the Nerdom.
absolutely. With that being said, I think we're rolling up here to the very end. Anything else we missed, or you wanted to kind of give a shout out to, or anything like that?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, and we did pick up another subscriber last week on our cringe corner, a little bit more being in the battle zone in the Thunderdome,
Yep.
as it were, for
Yeah.
covering certain things.
For all things cringe, it's been kind of quiet this week, so we didn't throw anything in the cringe corner. But yeah, if anything warrants being in there, we'll throw it in there and look and laugh at it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again, Thomas. I really enjoyed this week, and we'll see you soon.
All right, closing up the grab bag. See you later.